2008 campaign slogan, Country First. But the claim of patriotism should not be limited to that narrow slice of the political spectrum. Some in the so-called 1%, including but not limited to Warren Buffett, want to pay higher taxes and think doing so will be patriotic. Take a listen.
10 years ago, you made a mistake.
You gave tax cuts to millionaires like me.
And me.
And me.
You decided our country needed less money.
And millionaires like me needed more.
Now millionaires have more money.
And our country has less.
10 years ago, you gave me a tax cut I didn't want and I didn't need.
Fix the mistake you made.
Because it is the right thing to do.
Tax me.
Tax me. Tax me. Tax me.
Tax me.
Tax me because my country, our country, means more than my money.
Perhaps John Boehner and the GOP could learn from folks like my next guest who believes it's his patriotic duty to pay more for the good of his country. Joining me now is attorney and patriotic millionaire Dan Berger. Dan, thank you for your patriotism, your willingness to write the check. Explain how this began. I agree with you. I think you're doing and saying what is right. Explain the genesis of this movement.
Well, Eliot, first of all, thanks for having me on, and I appreciate those kind words. Let me say this, that starting about 2 years ago, actually it was sort of in the lame duck session of the 2010 election cycle. This group was formed. It's a group of about 200 or more individuals who earn $1 million a year or more, which, as you point out, corresponds roughly to the top 1% earners, income earners in the United States. We have advocated slightly higher taxes on the 1% in order to address the budget deficit, the debt, and related fiscal issues. Well, let me say this. We don't want to pay higher taxes, but we're willing to pay higher taxes as part of a program of shared sacrifice. Which we think would make sense under the circumstances.
And you also, at an intellectual level, reject the premise of the entire Republican argument, which is if you raise these tax rates marginally on the so-called job creators, somehow that will harm our economy.
Yeah, that's utterly ridiculous. Okay, it's first of all, it's false empirically. I think you pointed out it. We went through some of the analytics with Bruce Bartlett, who articulated them very well. And as Buffett pointed out in his op-ed piece, taxes went up from 84 to 2000 when Clinton was in the second part of the Reagan administration because of the imbalances created by the Reagan tax cuts. And, what do? We created 23 million jobs.
Right.
By the same token, the tax cuts to the wealthy were extended a number of times, including by President Obama under duress. And starting in 2009, that created a boom in financial assets, but it didn't produce many jobs.
Right.
And those are just anecdotal situations, but you can see there have been studies done, including the most recent one, which was suppressed by the
which is an amazing story. We
yeah.
talked about the Republicans suppressing the story that actually shows the data contrary to their.
So there's no evidence. There's no evidence for their contention. Okay, that A, tax cuts to the wealthy create jobs, or B, taxing the wealthy would somehow hurt economic growth.
Well, it is no longer a surprise to us that the Republican leadership rejects either science or the analytics, as you say, when it is contrary to an ideology which they very much want to embrace. Have you tried to engage with the leadership of the Republican Party to say to them, look, if you were analytically correct, I'd support you, but you happen not to be, and let's follow the empirical data?
Right. And, we came down to Washington a couple of weeks ago. We met with some people on the Hill. We met with Democrats, and we met with the principals, principals in both the House and the Senate. But when it came to the Republicans, the principals would not meet with us. They sent their lackeys, their underlings, their staffers. But the reaction that we got was a split reaction. Some of the staffers, in private, conceded that taxes would have to go up. Others, were true believers. They had drunk the Kool-Aid, and they actually walked out on us, and so I would say that you know, ventures up to Capitol Hill are exercises in political cynicism.
But once again, what troubles me so much is the unwillingness to actually confront data, to look at what has worked in the economy. You have studied the history and know that the marginal tax rates are up in the 70, 80, 90% range when our economic growth was booming earlier in the last century. So how do they square those positions?
I can't speak for them because, you know, I don't live in the bubble, and I don't read the literature, the propaganda. That's what it is. It's a myth. It's the folklore of capitalism, you know, as well as I. You know, it's the mythology of capitalism, and it's more reflective of a philosophical position, which is concentrate wealth in the hands of the few.
Right. Well, let me focus for a moment on the group, the Patriotic Millionaires themselves. Is that a bipartisan group? Or do you know?
Yes,
do you even ask people where they're?
It is bipartisan. We have Republicans, independents, Democrats, progressives, and yes, it is bipartisan. And I think, you know, it's indicative. There's a lot of people in the 1% who are prepared to do this. Not as, you know, not because they want to pay higher taxes, but they recognize to the extent that there is a fiscal crisis, and to a certain degree that's been manufactured, and it's an artifact of where we are in the economic cycle. You know, but to the extent there is, that we're willing, as part of an organized plan of shared sacrifice, to do it.
Very quickly, explain to me the response to the argument that, gee, the top 1% already pay a disproportionate share of their income in taxes.
It's not true. First of all, the rates, you know, the nominal rates, the federal income tax is progressive, is mildly progressive, you know, moderately progressive at best. What the rich pay, or the 1% pay, isn't anywhere close to the highest rate, 35%. On average, people in the 1% pay 22%, and they don't pay that much. They don't pay that much more than people in lower income groups. And if you actually look at both the relative and absolute tax burden of the federal income tax and the you know, income taxes in general, you'll find that the burdens are on the lower income groups.
We've got to stop it there. Dan Berger, thank you for joining us. You are a patriot. You want to pay more. You're right. That's Viewpoint for this week. See you here.